Appreciate you all coming out, truly do, on fairly short notice for a number of you. Appreciate you making the time to come here to the Capitol. It's an important time, you know this. It is budget season, and it is time for us to get about the people's business. And this is really why we're here in some measure. I will make a brief comment, defer to the Senate President, Robert Stivers, and also to the House Leader, Jeff Hoover. The three of us will touch briefly on our thoughts as it relates to the budget, but really open it up to questions that you all have. And when we do, just to give you some advance notice, we'll start here on this side, ask questions, and sort of rotate off to this side here. So if you do have questions, think about those in advance. Simply say this is the time in the budget process when negotiations occur, when the different bills that have been put forward, both from the executive branch and from the House and from the Senate, are reconciled in a conference. In order for that to happen, it takes dialogue between all parties concerned. And while there is an impression attempting to be made by some that negotiation is not occurring, I want you to understand from my perspective, from the executive branch, that both myself and the Senate and the House on the Republican side are absolutely willing to negotiate, absolutely willing to compromise and ensure that we come out of here with a budget that serves the Commonwealth well. In order for that to happen successfully, it takes all parties being involved. And by all parties, that means the others who have a voice in this case, the Democrats in the House. They are in charge of the House by numbers. They are the ones responsible for the appropriation bill that they have put forward. They need to be at the table. And we want to make sure that it is clear that we expect nothing less, and the people of Kentucky expect nothing less than good dialogue on this front as we move forward. Let me refer now in some measure to the guy who has been the most involved in recent hours in front of you all to some degree, as you know, but also behind closed doors in conversation with Greg Stumbo. So Senate President Robert Stivers.
Governor, members of the press, we are very much willing to go forward. We have until the 12th day of April. We are willing to stay here through the veto recess. We have made offers, but that we have not had any real offers returned to us. And this is the reason it is so important that we come with a period of time to do what the governor has said he wants to accomplish. There are multiple ways of accomplishing it, but we know we have a $38 billion unfunded pension. And the Speaker says there's monies out there that haven't really been defined. We have the language to define that we will put the monies in our budget that the Senate has proposed in both the KERS and KTRS. And after 1 year and performance audits are done, then we will have monies basically in a reserve. In that reserve to go to the most needy problems within the pension system, whichever system it may be. So we're willing and ready to go forward. We have ideas and thoughts. We are not saying that the budget negotiations are breaking down or we may leave here without a budget. We can conclude our floor business today, and then we have the veto recess for which we can work in. We can try to come to some type of compromise and resolution, and we can pass a budget that is both good for this state and the individuals we have made commitments to, and that is our state employees who are retired, our teachers who are retired, and those who are in the system with a promise that they would be able to retire in the system that we have promised them. So we're prepared and ready to go forward. And we ask the Speaker, let's sit down, whether it be in front of the cameras or in closed session, and resolve these issues and move forward.
Well, just to follow up very briefly, you have not heard any of us standing up here say that we're going to leave here without a budget, because nobody here wants to do that. We all want a budget, and as President Stivers says, we're willing, we're ready to continue negotiation, to continue discussion. But I think it's important to understand that this year, the House version of the budget got to the Senate at an unprecedented late date, but the Senate immediately took action, less than a week, and passed a budget so that we could get into a negotiation situation. We could get into conference committee. And this problem of the pension didn't happen overnight, as you all know. It's been 10 years or longer since the Senate began bringing attention to the issue of the pension crisis and what we were facing in this state. And it's not going to be solved overnight, but it is of utmost importance. The governor has said this issue must be addressed, and I'm thankful that we now have a governor who's saying enough is enough. We are going to begin to solve this problem for our retired teachers and for our retired state workers, and we're going to do it this session. We're not going to pass it any longer. So we're ready, we're willing, we're able to sit down to continue discussions. None of us want to leave here without a budget. None of us have said that. So we need to get down to business here. As President Stiver says, we have time to do it, and we need to act. And I call on the Speaker and Democrat leadership in the House to have that same attitude so that we can get this done.
Just follow up with one quick thought, and then we'll open it up to questions. Again, we'll start here and kind of move our way around. If you want to put that microphone up here from Wave 3, feel free. Go ahead.
Here,
You're not
I'll
gonna-
help you. Thank you.
Yep,
There we go.
no worries.
We're always a helpful group.
Yes, this is the way we operate in this caucus. In all seriousness, I mean, this is not a game. It really isn't. This is the type of thing where there is an expectation, appropriately so, on the part of the people, as has been noted, that we are here to get about their business, that we will take this job seriously. There is a certain amount of bluffing and tactics involved in the political process. We understand that. Those of you who have covered this for any duration of time, you understand this. This is the nature of what happens in this town. But as has also been noted, the time is now upon us to get the task accomplished, to sit down in good faith. There has been only one party that has said we may walk out of here without a budget. That is the one party not standing before you today. That is unacceptable. That is a weak way out. That is what happens when people are unwilling to do the job they were elected to do. There are some who frankly may suppose that people are stalling trying to get a special session. I've gotten emails from people saying, listen, we the taxpayers don't want to pay people to do in a special session the job that they should be doing now. We agree. We agree. And as President Stivers has said, we are here, we are in session. We will be here at any hour on any day for the next 2 weeks to meet at any time to talk about this issue. I have met with Speaker Stumbo both in groups and one-on-one. He and I met for more than 30 minutes, the two of us with no staffers talking about this budget. He is not taking this problem seriously. He needs to do so. Negotiation doesn't mean you take your stance and in fact don't move toward the middle, you move farther in the other direction. This is not a time for mulligans. This is not a time to change your own position and become even more lenient in the other direction. This is the time to sit down in good faith and work out a deal. And this is what we're proposing to do. Any questions starting here?
Yeah, so I know you say that you're willing to compromise on this, but from the public discussions and then from your comments, it appears that you all are unwilling to move on the number for the pension system, which you say it's very important. And the Democrats say they're unwilling to move on these cuts, especially for colleges and universities. You have to pass a balanced budget. Where is there room for compromise?
The compromise is that the first part of what you've stated is not correct. We have indicated, look just at the difference between my budget and the Senate budget. The Senate budget moves very much in certain directions from my budget as it relates to the pension, as to where dollars go, as to how much is put aside in the permanent pension fund, as to how much is left in the rainy day fund. My budget called for higher numbers in both. We have already begun to move toward a number that would suffice for all parties concerned. You are correct in the second part of your question/statement, which was they are unwilling to move off of cuts for certain parts of our Commonwealth. The reality, as was noted by Leader Hoover, this is a $38 billion, and truth be told, we don't know what the number is. It's tens and tens of billions of dollars. Everybody has a different thought, and until we audit these funds and truly understand We won't know the exact number, but let's call it $38 billion. This number has been growing. This number has been appearing larger and larger in our rearview mirror for a long time. It has to be addressed. And their unwillingness to believe that anyone has to tighten their belt. This idea that we're just going to kick it down the road 2 more years. We've got to stop kicking the can down the road. This is going to require an effort on the part of all parties concerned to come to the table and to be a part of the solution, and that is involving cuts by all parties that we've already designated, the exact degree of which is part of a negotiation process. That's what needs to happen. Any other questions, Jack?
Governor, has the time passed for the legislature to produce a budget that would preserve their right to override vetoes? Has that time passed?
I'll let the Senate President speak to that. The answer is yes, but I'll let him speak as to why that's a moot point in some measure.
If that time has passed, would you be willing to pledge not to issue any vetoes?
Oh, of course not. Are you kidding me?
If both sides.
Not a
agree to
chance,
compromise?
not a chance. That would be silly. That would be silly. It would be an abdication of my responsibility as the governor of this state. And no governor should ever make such a statement at any point during the process. But the point of a negotiation and compromise is this: if in fact we can come to a well-negotiated and respectful stance that takes into consideration the need to address our pension crisis, the need to pay for workforce development, the need for participation by all parties possible to the process, if we can come to such a conclusion, then the need for me to do anything above and beyond that is tremendously minimized and perhaps eliminated, but we would only be hypothesizing at this point.
So the time has passed?
Let me say this. I think people need to understand something that Jeff Hoover just said. As of today, it's not even been 2 weeks since the budget was passed out of the House. I reiterate that, not been 2 weeks since it was passed out of the House. We have produced a document and gone into conference committee in less than 2 weeks from the Senate. In the early days, well, no, the late days of last year, we agreed upon a calendar. And the calendar sets the date of adjournment for April 12th. We can work through those days and try to come up with a budget, and we're willing to do that. But based on that and the logistics of preparing a document, we cannot have that document ready and maintain the veto overrides and adjourn on the 12th.
And you're not willing to move April 12th?
No, because we've known this. The Speaker's known it. We've known the Easter holiday fell in between. That's why we set a calendar to keep people on schedule and to move the calendar out to our constitutional date of adjournment would only prolong it. We need to be here. We have 12 days, actually more than that, I think 13, in which we can work on this and come up with a resolution.
Senator, are you absolute on that? You will not budge?
No.
on the 12th? You will not budge?
I will not budge on the 12th. We've been here, we've known it for months, that this date is the date of adjournment, sine die. And I want to make one other point. It is not just the pensions that are the problem. I think the people of this state need to know this fact. My home is in eastern Kentucky. And I think people know that eastern Kentucky has been hit hard and ravaged by the loss of jobs in the coal industry. And people who don't know the purpose of severance tax was to create opportunities and jobs in eastern Kentucky because coal was a finite resource. I ask you all, go back and look and see what the House spent their dollars on. Pools maintenance, golf course maintenance, monies for fairs and fairgrounds, not a baseball fields. And I love baseball. I love Little League. I've said this many times. My brother's on the World Congress of Little League. But that does not create a job in eastern Kentucky, which we most desperately need. And that is going to be a big point of contention if we cannot do something that the SOAR initiative, that the former governor, Congressman Rogers, the Speaker, and myself agreed to, that we need to be creating an environment and investing our money in producing jobs.
In exchange, sadly, for those very things that was just noted, by Senator Stivers. In exchange for that type of pork project and the handing of dollars here, there, and everywhere, in the version of the budget that came forth from the House, they stripped out any dollars to be spent on workforce development, as was proposed in our budget and by the Senate as well. It's irresponsible, given where we are, that we would not focus on what this state needs, paying its bills and its obligations and creating jobs and opportunities for future taxpayers to contribute to continuing to pay the bills. We are 47th in the country in workforce participation. We have the 47th lowest level of workforce participation in America. These should concern us, these facts. And as was noted as it relates to the budget, if you go back in recent years, the average date upon which a budget was signed, not delivered or entered into discussion, but signed, the average date was March the 11th. We did not even have anything to negotiate on, react to, respond to, or look at from the House until after that date. This is a game that is being played that is not a game as it relates to our responsibility. We are serious about it. We have time to do it. We're not going into special session. There will be tremendous pain inflicted upon the people of Kentucky if the Speaker does not sit down and come up with a budget. It is up to him. If the pain is inflicted, it will be because the Speaker is unwilling to negotiate in good faith. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Governor Bevin, is there a figure by which you would be willing to back off your 9% cuts to higher education, say 4.5%, or is 9% firm?
Greg, is that you? No, I mean, no, in all seriousness, here, in all seriousness, this is exactly the kind of conversation that should be happening with the Speaker and the gentlemen that are behind me. There is nothing, and I mean nothing, within my budget, and I'll speak for the senator, and you can speak if you disagree. There's nothing within our budgets that is not able to be put on the table, nothing. There is no number that is not willing to be negotiated. There is no stance or no call for any particular funding of any particular thing that is not able to be considered as part of the negotiation. Nothing from our side, nor should there be from the other side. That is what negotiation is. That is what compromise is. But you cannot begin to get to what the proper end result is if one side refuses to even enter into the conversation, and to the degree that they do, take the exact stance they had or one that is farther in the opposite direction. That is not a compromise.
Would it have been fair, though, for the House to have passed a budget without 4 districts being heard from before that special election on the 8th, which by necessity
Yes,
pushed?
it would have absolutely been fair. There's no question. Not one bit of what they did come forward with was remotely colored by that. There was no chance, no matter how that election went, that the Republicans would have had control of that House. It still would have been the responsibility of Greg Stumbo to come forward with that. And so it was absolutely his responsibility to do so. There is a meeting and a hard stop that these folks have to go to. I'm willing to continue to sit here if need be, but do you have to hop out? For those that have to hop out, thank you.
President Cyrus, about the judicial budget, where does that stand right now, and is there a chance on revisiting that? One last question.
The judicial branch budget, as I understand it, has been enrolled in the House and ready to come to the governor's desk for signature. That bill in and of itself cannot be revisited. The issue of the judicial branch budget could be.
It's important to understand there have been 4 bills that have come forward related, as we said, to appropriations, to spending, it's set to revenue. 3 of them have been passed exactly as they've come to the Senate from the House. 1 is under negotiation, or should be. Any other questions from those that are here? Yes.
If the permanent fund was less than $500 million and required General Assembly approval before it's used, are you okay with that?
Again, look at the language that's in there. The number is not a magic number. And again, I've said now 2 or 3 different times that already, based on what the Senate is calling for, it's less than what I was calling for. The key is it has to be significant. It has to be dedicated, and Senator Stivers spoke to this fact, and I think Leader Hoover did as well. It will be dedicated to paying down our pension obligation. That is the sole purpose of the permanent fund. It is a permanent pension fund, the proceeds of which are to be used only for the purpose of paying down our pension obligation. That is exactly why it's there. It sends a powerful message to the outside world, to credit rating agencies who have in recent days, if you've been following along, continuously downgrading us, and they've been downgrading us because of our tenuous financial situation and because of our severe underfunded liability. This is a message to them that we take it seriously. Look at the language from Fitch's, which is one of those rating agencies, after I put out my budget calling for this. They indicated essentially that this is the first time, perhaps ever, certainly in a long time, that this state has taken this seriously. And take it seriously is what we're going to continue to do. Yes, sir.
You think the news conference here this morning apt to move the issue or cause Democrats to be more so, more gridlock?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this. If talking about this and asking for the will of the people to be done causes certain parties in the conversation to not want to participate, I can't even, that degree of childishness and disregard would be unprecedented. I don't expect that. I think that would, I think those on the other side are not that way. They're adults, they're professionals, they've been in this town a long time, they understand what needs to happen. So if that were to happen, I think you could, interpret that in the ways that I just described. I don't anticipate that will happen. Certainly irresponsible if it did.
Governor, in a meeting with the Speaker Stumbo, he says that he's only spoken with you once, and that was before the special elections. Could you describe what's been talks?
Conversations I've had with him are between the two of us. The bottom line is he has my number, I have his. He knows how to reach me, I know how to reach him. We've spoken. He knows that. He's playing you. He's playing you. Don't be played. Any questions here in the middle before we move over here? Yes, sir.
Have you reached out to Speaker Stumbo to see if he would like to speak with you?
Again, I have reached out to him. I have spoken with him one-on-one specifically about the budget. These kind of conversations can continue to happen in either direction. There is no time or date in the next 2 weeks that I am unwilling to sit down with anybody and talk about this. And again, although they've had to jump to get into session, the House and the Senate feel the exact same way. We were all here till, I don't know, close to midnight last night. We're here, and there's no time or day that we will not talk. That is our job. That's what we were sent here to do. Any questions here? Let me come on back over here.
What about the politics of this, Governor? They are apparently going to run on the cuts you want to make to education and the fact that they want to restore those cuts.
Again, that is their prerogative, but the point is we need to pass a budget. If they are trying to play the budget and use this opportunity to play political games for 2016 elections, the people should be appropriately outraged. It's irresponsible. It's hardly what we were sent here to do. Getting reelected should not be the #1 driver behind decisions that are made in this town. They shouldn't be. We were sent here to do the will of the people. We were sent here in this session specifically to pass a budget. Passing a budget is what we should do.
Last question.
I'll take one.
The budget conference started off yesterday at 2 p.m. Senator McDaniel basically said, the first statement was, we're not going to deviate from our pension number, followed by Chairman Moran's statement that basically we're not going to deviate from our house number, our education number. I'm not sure I understand the distinction between one side or the other's willingness to negotiate.
But again, the question for those that didn't hear it is that at the beginning of the conference, we had one senator make a statement and then a representative make a statement, each on different sides of the equation, stating we're not moving off our number. That was done in front of you all. That's what happens every single time there is a budget. For those of you who've been in this town, you know that to be the, each case says we're not, each case will come to the press and make the statement that we're not moving, that we're defending X, Y, or Z constituents. And then they ask you all to leave and they close the door. And that's when real conversations take place. It has ever been thus. It will be that way again. That is what we expect to happen. And in fact, it did start to happen to varying degrees until suddenly a certain party decided they wanted to start moving off their own position in the opposite direction. That's unacceptable. The bottom line is this. This is not complicated. We were sent here to pass a budget. This state has financial issues. The House and the Senate have already agreed on 3 of the 4 things that have been put forward. There is one where there is disagreement. We have nearly 2 weeks to reconcile those differences, and reconcile those differences is exactly what we intend to do. Thank you. Stay tuned. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Everything's on the table. Thank you.